The night I first slept with Adrian, everyone assumed I would become Mrs. Hawthorne. I gazed at him, heart glowing, waiting for him to say, "Marry me." Instead he left me with a single icy line, "You're not qualified to be Mrs. Hawthorne," and walked away without looking back. The story rocketed through the city's VIP circles. I became the butt of public ridicule, and the Sterling family was forced to hold our heads up in shame. Crushed, I turned around and flew to France. 3 years later I came home. At a welcome-back dinner a friend had arranged, I met him again and greeted him coolly, "Mr. Hawthorne." While we talked sideways to each other, I missed the flash of pain that crossed his eyes. Later, when word got out that I was engaged to someone else, he raced through the first snowfall, clothes soaked, hair plastered to his forehead. His eyes were red, his voice hoarse, careful, almost begging, "Are you going to abandon me again?" Before we go on, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. On my third day back, Ava threw a party to wash away the jet lag. The guest list was short, just the old inner circle who'd grown up summering in the Hamptons and bidding at the same charity galas. No one expected Adrian to show. When the door swung open and a tall, black leather-jacketed man stepped in, the room inhaled as one. Everyone knew the history, everyone remembered the messy, very public ending. The air congealed for several beats. Ava rushed to smooth it over. "Big brother, what are you doing here? Sit, sit." Adrian swept the sofa with a detached glance, chose the seat farthest from me, and never once looked my way. These people were raised on candlelit benefit dinners and seven-figure silent auctions. They can read a room before the soup course. His chill was a neon warning. Curiosity burned, but 3-year-old scandals stayed buried tonight. No one resurrected a thing. "Serena, I swear I didn't invite him," Ava whispered, leaning in. "He asked what I was doing this morning and I let it slip. I didn't think he'd actually come." I said nothing, just gave a small shake of my head. I'd known avoidance was impossible the moment I touched down at Teterboro. I simply hadn't expected the reckoning to be tonight, in someone else's penthouse, without even a dress rehearsal. We had never officially broken up, we'd simply stopped. Resurrection was never going to be graceful. I glanced at the empty tumbler on the coffee table, stood, and walked straight toward him with a fresh pour. I stopped an arm's length away, eyes locked. He sat cross-legged, swirling a crystal glass, profile sharp, mouth thin, telegraphing "do not approach." I shaped a polite society smile. "Adrian, sorry I'm late." The voice wasn't mine. Before I could speak, a greeting trilled from the doorway. I turned. Vivian, our old boarding school classmate, floated in, white sundress, barely there makeup, camera-ready grin. She brushed past me and settled beside him, claiming the spot that once belonged to me. Sharp intakes hissed around the room, pupils flicked to gauge my reaction. My expression stayed mild, but the nails hidden behind my glass crescented my palm. She tucked her arm through his, intimate, proprietorial. He didn't flinch, instead he softened, eyes glowing the way they once did for me. I had lingered in front of him for minutes without earning even a flick of acknowledgement. It felt like a serrated blade dragged repeatedly across my heart, pain first, then the slow ooze. I remembered Vivian's family scraping for tuition grants. She and Adrian had barely shared a hello at school. So when had the trajectory of their orbits shifted? Then her wrist flashed a band of imperial green, and the question shredded inside me. I recognized it instantly. The Hawthorne jade bangle passed from mother-in-law to daughter-in-law for 3 generations. Only the woman Adrian designated as his wife was allowed to wear it. After our first night together, aching and starry-eyed, I had sneaked it on while he showered, dreaming he would ask. Instead he had yanked it off, snapped, "You're not qualified," and left without a backward glance. Now someone else wore it as casually as a friendship bracelet. A decade of my devotion collapsed into a single, meaningless heap. The chandelier's glare fractured across my lashes, shadow shards pricked my eyes. I closed them, reopened. Adrian angled a doting grin at her, then flicked a glance at me, impatience stamped across his face. My fingers trembled around the glass. I dredged up a ragged smile, voice winter cold. "Mr. Hawthorne, may you and Miss Blackwood enjoy a long, happy marriage." I downed the drink, the room blurred, but I still caught the wince he tried to hide. I escaped to the powder room, planning to leave without goodbyes. After texting Ava, I stood at the mirror and saw Adrian's reflection behind me, jaw clenched, eyes bloodshot. He looked like he'd swallowed broken glass. A few drinks had stained his lashes crimson, and he stared as if the rest of the world had vanished. The VIP restroom sat in a private corridor the Hawthorne family kept on permanent retainer. No strangers, no bodyguards, no sound. I nodded once, intending to sidestep. As I passed, he snagged my elbow and yanked me against him so easily it was insulting. My nose smacked his sternum, involuntary tears sprang up. "Mr. Hawthorne, keep your hands to yourself." I rubbed the bridge of my nose, glaring. He looked exactly as he had 3 years ago, chiseled, aloof, expensive, except for those carnelian eyes betraying how far he'd slipped off the leash. A cold laugh scraped his throat. In one motion he hoisted me onto the marble counter, caging me with his hips. The position screamed intimacy. Panic flared. I kicked, heels drumming the cabinet. "Let go of me, Adrian." "Oh? A minute ago it was polite Mr. Hawthorne, now we're back to first names?" He clamped my ankle with one hand, dragged me flush against him. Before I could shove, the lights cut out. Someone had tripped the motion sensor. A shaft of hallway glow bled through, painting us in halftone. I squeezed my eyes shut, adjusting. Tobacco and top-shelf whiskey washed over me as he leaned in, breath hot. I planted a palm on his chest and shoved hard. "Adrian, you have a girlfriend, what the hell am I supposed to be?" His face snapped back as if I'd slapped him. Disgust poured in to drown the haze. "What do you think you are? Looking at you makes me sick. Crawl back to France and stay there, permanently." On his way out he lashed a foot at the trash bin, pulverizing it against the wall. If this had happened 3 years ago, Adrian yelling at me to get lost, I would have rolled away at full gallop, then circled back to kick him in the shins. But I can't do that now. My family is on the verge of bankruptcy. This time I came back with no intention of returning to France. I can't go back at all. I'm getting married. When my parents told me, I wasn't surprised, remarkably calm, in fact. Maybe because, ever since I was little, they'd drilled into me that, as the only daughter of the Sterling family, entering a strategic marriage for the family's glory is my destiny. I believed it without question. As for the groom, nothing's settled yet. Mom and Dad are still shopping around. I padded downstairs in my cotton slippers just in time to hear them discussing it. After weighing every option, the Hawthorns still come out on top. Too bad about that boy Adrian. My father sighed, then fell silent for a long moment. I pressed my lips together. The Hawthorne family is deeply entrenched in Manhattan. They hold absolute authority across every industry. Every social climber in the city courts them. Adrian is the sole heir of his generation. Practically every family with a daughter dreams of marrying her to him. From the moment I could remember, my parents had picked Adrian as my future husband. To prepare, I bought a leather-bound journal and filled it with 986 facts about him. Adrian's favorite color is white. He loves basketball. He's a neat freak and hates anyone touching his things. To match his tastes, my closet hung nothing but white dresses in every cut and fabric. While other girls studied ballet or piano, I also learned to shoot hoops. Luckily, everything went smoothly. We dated, even reached the brink of engagement. Both sets of parents were delighted with the match. Then, after our first night together, he suddenly abandoned me. For the next 2 weeks he didn't call once. Overnight, I became the laughingstock of Manhattan. Good breeding left me no choice but to leave, so I went to France. I dragged my thoughts back to the present. My parents' voices floated toward me again. "I hear the Carringtons brought that boy Ellis back 3 years ago." I didn't pay much attention. The name Ellis sounded faintly familiar. Probably some heir I'd met at a gala, nothing special. Time in Manhattan flew. A week disappeared in the blink of an eye. While Ava and I were having lunch, we ran into the very Ellis my parents had mentioned. He strode into a private dining room, tall and sharply cut in a black business suit. My gaze followed instinctively. Ava caught it and jumped in. "That's our senior from high school, you've met him." I looked away, brows knitting as I tried to recall that face. "It's Carrington Chen, remember? Rumor said he was the Carringtons' illegitimate son. They acknowledged him 2 years ago." The pieces clicked. Ellis was Carrington Chen. Bit by bit I superimposed the long-legged man who walked like a storm onto that quiet, taciturn boy. According to Ava, old man Carrington fetched Ellis home himself 3 years ago, right after I'd left for France, which explained why I'd missed it. Once inside Carrington Capital he moved like lightning, and within months seized the top seat. The board fought him hard, but the patriarch silenced them with one wave of his cane. Ellis delivered. Under him the company's market cap doubled. Nowadays Carrington Power rivals Hawthorne, and no one dares raise an eyebrow. Add to that his ice-cold temperament, he's notorious for avoiding scandals, and his ruthless business style, and the entire city keeps its distance. Listening, a few memories flashed through my mind. Come to think of it, Ellis and I share a history that's anything but ordinary. After lunch, Ava climbed into her chauffeured car. I made an excuse to stay behind. Fresh lipstick applied, I stepped out of the restroom just as a rich, mellow voice drifted over. Serena, long time no see. I turned and looked up. He stood in a perfectly tailored suit, tall and ramrod straight. Light flooded the restaurant, soft music curling in the air. A fringe of hair brushed the hard line of his brow, his eyes fixed on me. We chatted lightly, then Ellis offered to drive me home. I didn't refuse, giving him the address of my midtown penthouse. He hadn't had a drink, so he took the wheel himself. As we glided through the city, my phone buzzed. Vivian. Serena, I know you and Adrian once had the city's most talked about romance, but I'm his fiancé now. These 3 years while you were gone, I stayed by his side and helped him through every low. He slept with you, then tossed you aside, nothing but spoiled goods to him. Now that you're back, show some pride and stop throwing yourself at our life. I stared at the neon streaking past the window and smiled down at the screen. Once, everyone in Manhattan knew that Adrian kept Serena on the pedestal of his heart. Whoever disrespected me, intention or accident, reappeared at galas covered in bruises. At every party I shone brightest, courted by constellations. But times change. The woman beside Adrian now carries a different name. The Sterling heiress? Just a pair of worn-out shoes the Hawthorne prince discarded. Without Hawthorne's shelter, the Sterling Group is months from collapse. Soon pride will force my proud head to bow. Maybe I'll end up a plaything for some Park Avenue heir. I'd heard the whispers, every poisonous word. They filled me with rage, yet left me nothing to refute. Those 3 years abroad were brutal. The arrogance I was born with had been ground down to almost nothing. Before blocking Vivian, I screenshotted her final message. A photo of Adrian lying unconscious beside her collarbone, kiss marks blooming across her skin. His mouth smeared crimson, clearly fresh from another round of passion. My heart lurched. Fingers clutching the phone trembled. I saved the image anyway. At last the car stopped. Ellis turned to me. Serena, we're here. Still facing away, I saw his reflection in the window blur into the face that had confessed to me drunk that night long ago. My long dead pulse flared searing hot, and the words slipped out without permission. Ellis, that thing you said that night, is the offer still open? The instant the door clicked shut behind us, kisses rained down fierce and thick. He cupped my face, pinning me against the hardwood. In public he kept himself under iron discipline. Now every scrap of restraint dissolved, hunger flooding the room. Off came my coat, my scarf. His misted eyes, shining with longing, traveled slowly from my gaze to my lips. Then he bent, cool thin lips capturing mine, tongue gliding in to tangle with mine. Fireworks detonated behind my eyelids, my knees buckled. Ellis caught my waist and held me upright. Next thing I knew, I was in his arms, weightless. When my back met the mattress, fear finally caught up. I'm scared it'll hurt. Ellis, be gentle. My first time had been anything but tender. Terror knotted inside me. As my nails bit my palms, he threaded our fingers. Serena, relax. That low magnetic voice soothed every clenched muscle. He didn't rush. Instead his long fingers grazed my waist. A current sizzled through me, and I shivered. Heat gathered slick between my thighs, my cheeks burned. He lowered his head, kissing me deeply as he pressed forward. The air thickened with musk, starving me of oxygen. Exhaustion swept me fast. I surrendered to his tireless hunger. Besides exhaustion, there didn't seem to be any pain, utterly different from the times Adrian had taken me with fury. Ellis, aren't you supposed to be notorious for avoiding scandals? I whispered. So, Serena, are the rumors true or not? Ellis chuckled softly. I shot him a playful glare. The dim, shifting light skimmed across the perfect angle of his face, and in his tender eyes I saw myself reflected, like a shy bud unfurling. On the glass, our silhouettes swayed, drenched in spring rain, petal and drizzle pressed together until the image blurred. When everything finally stilled, a long silence settled in. The shrill ring of my phone woke me. Adrian's icy voice greeted me. Serena, if you want to be Mrs. Hawthorne, it's not impossible. Penthouse. Serve me well and the title's yours. My brain was still booting up. Perhaps because I no longer cared, I felt no rush, no thrill, no delight. I glanced at the empty space beside me, a twinge of loss tugging at me. The sheets retained a faint warmth. He must have slipped out for breakfast. A glass of lukewarm water waited on the nightstand. When the liquid hit my stomach it spread a gentle heat, clearing the fog in my head. Realization dawned. Adrian was just amusing himself at my expense. I was about to hang up when a syrupy female voice drifted through the speaker. Adrian, who are you talking to? Hand me my bath towel, Vivian. The cryptic texts from last night flashed through my mind, stoking a nameless anger. I might no longer be the sterling heiress of old, but I wasn't some puppet to be jerked around. One had told me to get lost, the other demanded I come running. I refused to dance for either. For the first time in my life I shouted at Adrian, "Adrian! I don't give a damn about being Mrs. Hawthorne. Whoever wants the crown can have it, just leave me alone, and you make me sick. Even the sound of your voice turns my stomach." The moment the words left my lips, years of suffocating resentment exhaled with them. I slipped into a blush-pink silk cheapao, applied the perfect flush of makeup, then wound a scarf over the faint rose marks on my neck. Winter in Manhattan made the wrap unremarkable. Ellis came back bearing my favorite sugar-dusted crullers. I took a bite and looked up. His nose was red, stray snowflakes dusting his hair. While we'd slept, the first snowfall had blanketed the city. I drew the curtains, silver rooftops and swirling flakes stretched as far as I could see. Adrian stared at the dead phone long after the call ended. Finally he laughed, half genuine amusement, half fury. The echo of Serena's voice rang in his ears. "I think you're dirty, you disgust me." He had never hurled those accusations at her, yet she'd beaten him to it. He hadn't touched another woman since they'd split. How was he dirty? Then it hit him, was she jealous? Women only lash out when they still care. His mood lifting, he strode from the lounge into the suite, a smile tugging at his lips. The moment he stepped inside, a friend's casual remark struck like lightning. "Hey, check this out, Serena has a new boyfriend." "Who?" That was fast. "Dunno, you can only see half his back, but the guy's even taller than Hawthorne." Adrian crossed the room in 3 furious paces, face dark as a thunderhead. Silence crashed over the group. He snatched the phone. The screen showed Serena beaming at the camera, behind her a man hunched over a tablet, working. Warm, domestic, unmistakably intimate. Then Adrian spotted the faint rose bruise on her neck. His knuckles cracked as his fists clenched, a slow tremor running through him. Something he'd treasured had been touched by another. His heart felt sliced, raw. The caption, "May we grow old together beneath the first snowfall," stabbed straight through him. She had once wished that every first snowfall she'd be by his side, now she promised forever to someone else. He tossed the phone onto the sofa and stalked out, face as cold as frost. Vivian had watched from the doorway. Her clear voice rang after him, "Adrian, are you going to her? Do you still love her? After what happened 3 years ago, does none of it matter?" Each word slammed into him like a spell. He froze mid-step. Did it truly no longer matter? 3 years ago, on the eve of a scheduled trip to LA, he'd secured her passport early. At the last second she'd pled exhaustion and begged off. He hadn't insisted. He'd rushed through the week-long inspection in 4 days, desperate to return. Yet the moment he landed he learned she'd spent the night in Greenwich, with Ellis, the classmate she'd publicly defended more than once. He'd swallowed the truth, hoping she'd confess, but she'd looked him in the eye and insisted she'd stayed home. Weeks later Vivian laid irrefutable Polaroids before him. Serena relaxed against Ellis's shoulder, utterly at ease, as though savoring final moments before a separation. Later, in a bitter frenzy, Adrian had taken her. The pristine sheets held no virginity stain. In that instant he was certain her heart belonged not to him but to the Hawthorne name. Strip away his power and she'd flee straight into Ellis's arms. He minded that another man still lived in her heart. He minded that what she loved was the dynasty, not the man. He minded that she'd lied, slipped away, and given her first night to Ellis. Feeling the old wound split open, Adrian stayed away. Winter in Manhattan was brutal. The world lay buried under heavy white quilts. Inside the Southampton estate the heat blasted, cocooning them from the cold. Ellis sat on the sofa, posture respectful, priceless betrothal gifts arrayed beside him, 10% of Carrington Capital, gifted. My parents stared at the share transfer documents, stunned. Only when the grandfather clock finished its 12th chime did they recover. They exchanged incredulous glances, then looked again at Ellis, who inclined his head with quiet certainty. "Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, I've come to ask for Serena's hand. If my etiquette is lacking, forgive me." "No, no, perfect," they exclaimed, beaming, and the marriage was set for the 9th of next month. In a city of 8 million, society was a village. News swept through hedge fund tables and private school WhatsApp chats alike, finally reaching Adrian. He leaned against the billiard table as indolent as ever, as though the headline had bounced off him. Only when ash from his cigarette burned his knuckles did he speak. When? His tone was flat, only the fleeting rasp betrayed him. Friends knew. The reckless prince of Hawthorne Holdings lost his cool the instant Serena's name surfaced. Couple of days ago. The Sterlings are already planning the wedding. A humorless laugh scraped from Adrian's throat. Eyes lowered, he drawled, who else could Serena marry but me? The answer quavered back, Ellis, the man who controls Carrington Capital. The next second, Adrian lunged forward, seizing his friend by the collar. What? Say that again, Serena's marrying who? The kid's face turned white. Ellis, the head of the Carrington family. The room snapped to silence. Adrian flung the guy away. His knees buckled, he staggered back a step, then another. It felt like 1,000 needles skewering his heart, he couldn't breathe. Across the room, a mirrored screen flashed his own reflection, eyes bloodshot, face savage. He snatched the nearest ashtray and hurled it at the glass. Thunderous crash, shards exploded, skittering across the polished floor. Every cue stick froze midair. Every head snapped toward him. Shock and terror, uniform and absolute. Adrian roared, "Eyes on me and you'll lose them." He strode out, shoulders cutting through the stillness. Behind him, under the chandelier, Vivian watched, beautiful, motionless, poison cold. By the time he reached my apartment, it was well past midnight. The elevator was dead, he must have climbed. Snow still powdered his hair, untouched by the building's warmth, a fleeting crown of white. I opened the door and froze. His collar gaped, tie askew, stubble shading his jaw. He breathed hard, like he'd sprinted the final stairs. I pressed my lips together, the picture of crisp, immaculate Adrian crumbling in my mind. A ridiculous thought flickered, I swatted it away. Then he stepped forward, folded me into the circle of his arms, and the thought roared back, confirmed. Serena, I won't let you marry Ellis. You're mine. No outsider touches what's mine, not while I'm breathing. Even wrecked, he sounded every inch the Hawthorne air, arrogant, impossible. But I'm not property, I'm a person with a will. Tears betrayed me, blurring everything. I shoved him away and swung. The slap cracked across his cheek. He stood stunned, a red print blooming on his skin. It wasn't enough. Memories stormed in, the nights in Paris, the pitying whispers, the jokes about the girl dumped at 19. He knew every cut he'd allowed, every rumor he never denied, waiting for me to crawl back first. 3 years of bottled hurt detonated. Who do you think you are, Adrian? 3 years ago you refused to give me your name, left me a punchline. Now you barge in at midnight and forbid me to wed someone else. Tell me, exactly how do you want me to live? I wiped my cheeks, voice shaking. Listen carefully, who I marry is my choice, not yours. Seeing my tears, he went hollow, throat working. When he finally spoke it was barely a whisper. If I said I love you, if I'm ready to marry you right now, would you pick me over Ellis? Give me one more chance? I didn't answer. I walked to my dresser, slid open the drawer, and lifted the velvet box. Inside rested the priceless pink diamond ring he'd given me the night I turned 18. I wore a silk gown and a tiara. He kissed my forehead like a vow. Serena, he'd whispered, the day you're legal, I'll trade this for the wedding band. All these years I'd kept it safe. Now it belonged back with him. I extended the box. His fingers trembled so badly the velvet shook. He understood, my silence was final. Half a minute passed before he raised his head, laughing at himself, bitter, hoarse. So, you're abandoning me again. He left, shoulders curved inward, swallowed by the corridor's darkness. I watched until even the echo of his steps vanished, heart aching with something I refused to name. Everyone knows he walked away first, yet he looked the more wounded. There has to be more to the story, something I haven't been told. When I woke, groggy afternoon light painted the blinds. Messages from a high school friend waited on my phone. She'd heard I was back, suggested we meet at the Hot Spring Lodge in Southampton to catch up. I meant to refuse, Sterling Holdings is hemorrhaging and every hour counts, but she added, almost offhand, I actually know a few things about what happened senior year. Truth, sweet, seductive, hovered inches away. The estate was only an hour's drive. I agreed. Before stepping out, I texted Ellis my location and asked him to collect me later. Call when you're done, he replied. I tugged my cashmere sweater tighter and pushed through the cedar door. Steam rolled across the pool, my friend perched on the ledge, already in her bikini. Serena, over here, long time no see. We exchanged quick hugs. I changed into a strapless maillot and slid into the water. Heat slipped over skin like silk, muscles unclenching. Small talk exhausted, I cut to the chase. She pouted. Geez, Serena, we haven't seen each other in years and you jump straight to gossip. Can't we enjoy the soak first? Her gaze flickered, too fast, too nervous. I chalked it up to her old theatrics and humored her. She floated a fresh cup of mountain tea toward me. I sipped, dew-fed leaves left a lingering sweet note. When I set the cup down, I caught her staring at its rim, then jerking her eyes away. A shadow rippled behind the bamboo curtain, someone else's outline. My pulse spiked. I clenched a fist beneath the water. Who? Why? I forced a breezy smile. Didn't you just have a baby? I spotted the smartest designer stroller, perfect godmother gift. Remember, your little bean has to call me mama number 2. I paddled to the steps, legs suddenly soft as wax. Nails biting my palms kept me upright. I snagged my phone and speed dialed Ellis. It rang once before a hand shot out, snatched the cell, and flung it into the pool. Water swallowed the screen, my reflection wavered, warped, gone. I squinted but shapes blurred. A moment later the phone hissed and died, as did the last of my hope. Arms like sandbags hoisted me from behind. I caught a whiff of cheap whiskey before the world flipped. I landed on a mattress, door slamming like a gunshot. A voice purred above me, familiar, venomous. I warned you not to throw yourself at him again. Mrs. Hawthorne gets only one face, and it's mine. Vivian? I felt her smile more than saw it. Sleep tight, darling. Footsteps retreated. The bolt shot home. Darkness closed in. Vivian stood at the foot of the bed, her gaze looking down on Serena's unconscious face. The expression she wore was vicious and twisted. Her hand gripped the camcorder so tightly it shook from time to time, betraying how thrilled she felt right then. She was curious. Would the princess who had always been surrounded by admirers still lift her chin in pride after being stamped into the mud? Recalling the past years, Vivian's eyes glistened with excited tears. From a remote mountain village to the Hawthorne mansion in Manhattan, she had stumbled and crawled for 6 years. They shared the same birthday. Serena could wear an expensive princess gown in the middle of a crowd, bathe in congratulations and praise, while gifts so costly Vivian wouldn't dare dream of them were piled carelessly in a corner. She, meanwhile, could only hide in the unlit places no one noticed, a sly rat peeping at another girl's happiness. It wasn't fair. Even then she had secretly vowed she would climb upward step by step with her own effort. She would steal Serena's friends, steal the Adrian was proudest of. Then she, too, would become a princess others envied. Perhaps heaven thought her first 18 years had been too bitter. For once in her life, her wish came true. Serena was dumped by Adrian and became the laughingstock of Manhattan's elite. After Serena fled overseas, Vivian seized the chance to draw near to Adrian. 3 years of quiet companionship later, she was finally publicly introduced as his girlfriend. She wore the jade bangle reserved for Mrs. Hawthorne and became the respected big sister everyone in their circle bowed to, but she knew none of it had been coincidence. It had been engineered, inevitable. 3 years ago, she had tipped Ellis off that Serena was spending the night at a country estate upstate. Long observation had told her those two were anything but simple. Only because of Adrian had they kept their feelings buried. She had assumed a lone man and woman in one villa would lose control, yet the pair had merely talked the whole night. Seeing such a rare opportunity, how could she bear to waste it? She shot several misleading photos from different angles and mailed them all, anonymously, to Adrian. But she had underestimated his reach. The next day he found her. Face cold, he forced her to delete every picture. Boundless defeat had closed in on her then. She had readied herself for the worst. Still, she didn't give up. She secretly slipped a drug into Serena's water. That made it impossible for blood to stain the sheets on the couple's first night. This tiny act became the fuse that blew them apart. Now, about to become the envied Mrs. Hawthorne, she had seen Serena fly home and wreck every plan. How could she not hate? If Serena had stayed far away from Adrian, she might have let her live, but the woman insisted on defying her, so much so that Adrian abandoned her, Vivian, in the dead of night. In that instant, murder crossed her mind. If Adrian could still accept Serena, it was only because he had never seen the woman fall into filth. This time she would personally hurl Serena into the abyss. She would make Adrian loathe her. Ellis was in the middle of a crucial board meeting when Serena's call came. Almost by sixth sense he knew something was wrong. Ignoring his chief assistant, he suspended the meeting. Striding to the garage, he redialed while he walked. The unanswered ring confirmed his guess. His temples throbbed the whole way. What was usually a 30-minute drive from Midtown to the estate he tore through in 5, running every red light. When he burst in, his heart nearly leapt from his throat. The hotel suite was chaos. The moment he spotted her, his eyes reddened. Serena lay on the bed, unconscious. Water dripped from her hair. Shards of glass were buried deep in her palm, a shocking sight. Her cheeks were swollen, blood at the corner of her mouth, clearly beaten while fighting back. The door crashed open just as a beefy, pig-faced man was fumbling with his belt. Who the hell ruins a man's fun? He twisted around, annoyed. Ellis crossed the room in 2 steps, grabbed the man's collar, and punched with killing force. He worked out every week, hard chest, carved abs, plus a height advantage. He slammed the man's head against the wall again and again. Thud, thud, thud. Each impact struck the heart of Vivian, frozen in place. The camcorder in her hand was still recording. Suddenly the air felt heavier. A chill crawled over her limbs. She turned slowly. Adrian's livid face filled her vision. Cold sweat soaked her back. She knew. She was finished. Everything was finished. Only when Adrian dragged her to the Hawthorne basement for underground punishment did Vivian see the man clearly. He was savage, violent, merciless. When he pressed a red-hot iron to her skin, he didn't blink. The stench of scorched flesh rose and his eyes showed no pity, only disgust. She finally realized he had never loved her. She had never stepped into his heart. She had never even stood on equal ground with him. Watching Adrian go insane for Serena, she understood her own stupidity. These 3 years had been a joke. In the end, she spilled every detail with a sneer. So be it, she thought. Her birth itself had been a farce. Trading her life for the 3 years they'd lost, no loss at all. The truth hit Adrian like a lightning strike. The iron slipped from his hand and clanged to the floor. He breathed in ragged gulps, chest heaving as if his heart might burst through bone. Shock, disbelief, his face was frozen. He stood paralyzed, thunderstruck. The room was silent, deathly silent. The air still reeked. His throat burned with acid. He wanted to vomit. He didn't know how he climbed those stairs. Each step felt like knives carving his heart. He crossed the yard outside the estate. Snow flew like goose feathers, blotting out the sky. Bone-deep cold gripped Manhattan. His stare was hollow as he gazed into the distance. Servants called his name but he heard nothing. Time slipped away. Snow piled on his shoulders and hair before his knees finally buckled and he collapsed. So, he had misunderstood Serena for 3 years. He could have had her. Instead he shoved her away, straight into Ellis's arms. His own filthy mind had stained her and cost them everything. He was the one who deserved to die. White blanketed the world, nothing else could be seen. He dared not think how he would live the rest of his days without her. He had brought this on himself, and heaven was crushing him for it. The price was losing Serena forever. I woke in a hospital room. Ellis sat beside the bed. The instant my lashes lifted, his bloodshot eyes lit up. "Serena, you're awake." I gave a small nod. The moment I tried to speak, my throat burned as if packed with embers. He sprang up, fetched a glass of lukewarm water, and held it to my lips. I sipped. The sting eased a little. I looked up, eyes blazing for the truth. His own reddened at once and he soothed me again and again. Nothing happened, nothing at all. I exhaled in relief. Propped on the pillow, I let him tell me everything. When he finished, my face stayed calm, betraying nothing. Only the hands beneath the quilt kept twisting the sheet. Ellis couldn't hold back. "Do you regret it?" "Regret what?" "Missing your chance with Adrian because of a misunderstanding." I paused, lids lowered. I weighed the question carefully. Ellis watched me, catching every flicker. A few seconds later I lifted my gaze to the clock on the opposite wall. The hour hand had just slid past 12. I shook my head. "See? A new day has already started. We keep moving forward." That night, snow whispered over Manhattan all the way till dawn. Ellis and I fell asleep in each other's arms. When sunlight arrived the next morning, it felt unusually warm. Spring wind brushed my face, everything was stirring back to life. Spring had come. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you liked it, please thumbs up and share with friends. We look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales. See you next time.